I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
What's good, everybody? You are now listening to another episode of the Man Listen Show. But before we get started, let's hear a few words from our sponsors.
Make sure you check out the new book, Mythbusters, Lessons from Active Black Fathers by Marvin Austin Banks Jr. Mythbusters, Lessons from Active Black Fathers, dispels the notion that black fathers are not involved in their children's lives. This book looks to inspire and motivate a new generation of fathers to own their roles as their children's first source of motivation and encouragement. So if you know a black dad or anybody who is a father figure to black children, make sure you buy them this book. You can purchase this wonderful book at www.activeblackdad.com.
DD's Daiquiris is your #1 supplier of premium daiquiri mixes. You will love the taste of our classic margarita and signature strawberry mixes. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at DD's Daiquiris. DD is spelled D-E-E-D-E-E. You can also find us at www.dd'sdaiquiris.com. DD's Daiquiris, giving good vibes to good people, one good drink at a time.
Please buy the new book by Arika Nicole Moore, Diabolical Tales of Woe. Diabolical Tales of Woe is a thrilling collection of short horror stories that leave you in an excited trepidation to see what will happen next. Prepare to face one horrific encounter after the next in this captivating novel. You can find this book on Amazon in the Kindle and paperback version. That is Diabolical Tales of Woe by Arika Nicole Moore.
More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services offers individual and relationship counseling as well as mediation services to the community. At More Grace, healthy partnerships are valuable and beneficial. Please visit the website www.moregracecounseling.com for more information about our approach to counseling. More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services, where we offer more grace and more healing.
Conversate with Us Radio presents the Man Listen Show. We are the blackest radio show on the internet. We bring you our opinion on topics that affect the black community in an effort to enlighten, enrich, and empower every brother and sister that falls under the sound of our voice. We operate on a no-hating frequency, so be prepared for us to keep it 100% real and 100% black all the time. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Man Listen Show. You can also subscribe to the show on Twitch, on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, and make sure you let everybody know about the blackest radio show on the internet, the Man Listen Show. I'm your host, Mark B. Let's bring the crew in. All right, y'all. So a lot going on. So NFL, John Gruden, former coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, he stepped down last night. The Raiders was playing, so did he even coach the first half? I know that he stepped down. Did he step down at halftime, or how did that happen?
No, they wasn't. They played on Sunday. They didn't play last night.
Okay, I thought they played last night. Okay, all right, cool. Well, Gruden got caught up for some language that he used. He used some offensive language towards black people. He used some offensive language towards women. He used offensive language towards the LGBT community. And ultimately, the news came out that he had made some anti-black remarks. We all was like, dang, what's going on? And people, I was kind of disappointed, man, because I saw a lot of black people, some players like Tim Brown, former players of his, kind of saying like, well, it happened a long time ago. Maybe he should just get a fine and a suspension, whatever. And I was like, nah, if I say something out of pocket, I'm gone. So I want the same for him. So a lot of black people were stepping too, but more and more information is coming out, and information came out. He was talking about Roger Goodell, the commissioner, and he called him the F word. And he said some other stuff. And the racist comment that he made, he was talking about DeMaurice Smith, the president of the NFL Players Association. He said his lips so big it looked like Michelin tires. And he he said a lot of stuff, and this was all triggered by the investigation the NFL was doing into the Washington football team, formerly known as, the Washington, racial epithet. And this their whole toxic culture of how they were running that organization, how they were treating the cheerleaders. Like, I read that they basically took like the cheerleaders for the team off to a resort, like in the Caribbean or somewhere. And basically, like, as soon as they got there, collected their passports and, were making them do topless photo shoots. And not only were they making them do topless photo shoots, but I guess preferential season ticket holders or customers were there to watch the whole photo shoot. So out of the 40 girls, about 9 of them was told that, hey, listen, y'all not done working. Y'all are going to escort our customers tonight. So basically, it was like some human trafficking stuff going on with the Washington football team. And the former GM who got caught up, he was emailing Gruden, and that's when all this stuff came to light, and it just looked back. I think they were sharing pictures too of those cheerleaders, who were topless. So he resigned, but a lot of us thought it a little bit questionable that when he just talked about Black people, there was no call for his resignation. But as soon as you started talking about the LGBT, as soon as you started talking about being misogynistic, hey, he was gone. So I don't know. What y'all think? I mean, the NFL has always been kind of trash in terms of how it's treated its players, the whole plantation mentality. We talked about that, even though we still watch. But what were y'all thoughts when y'all heard about Gruden and, his racial comments and everything else?
I think that same as everybody else, I was like, oh, Dave Chappelle was right. I was like, man, y'all keep trying to cancel Dave, but he be speaking real facts.
We're going to get into that later. But
yeah,
you stole my transition. But go ahead.
Sorry. But to bring it back, I follow this page called The Free Roots, and they've been going back and forth on this page about whether or not Dave Chappelle is problematic, which I've stayed out of that conversation because I don't think so, but I also don't have the time and energy to argue with people on the internet about it. But he was like, one of the arguments is that we don't apply the same pressure that those communities apply. Like you said, there were players and stuff coming out in support of him. And so if we're not going to jump down people's throat and demand people be canceled every time there's a racial, term or epithet used, then, what are we doing? So can we get mad if we're not applying the same pressure that these other communities are pressing? And so that kind of made me challenge what I was thinking a little bit. And I haven't necessarily processed all the way through it because I feel like on the one hand, yes, other groups get, preferential treatment when it comes to, hey, you can't offend us or you're going to be gone. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said about the unity in the message of those other groups. And I don't think we have that same unity. And so how much of that responsibility lands on us, I don't know.
Well, you remember the show we talked about the baby, and I brought the point Dave Chappelle brought up. I said, listen, you talk about LGBT, but what about all the anti-Black stuff that he says? And
right.
he had the exact response. C said it. He said, well, that's on us. We don't apply the same pressure. C said that. I still think that's wrong. I'm not saying that C is not right, but I still think that we deserve better treatment, whether we are applying the pressure or not. But C, you was on point with this. What'd you think?
It's the same. Like Erika said, we don't apply the same pressure. If we don't hold people accountable, we can't keep getting mad at the LGBT community and all the other like feminist groups who do. That's the difference. Like we're allowing people to talk that way or to speak that way about us or treat us a certain way. When the stuff first came out with Gruden, I think I probably saw, I'd probably say maybe 60-40. I saw a lot of Black people, both famous and non-famous, who were making excuses for him. They were like, well, it was a long time ago. I'm like, it's 2011. Maybe if somebody said something in the 60s and 70s and maybe the 80s was a different time frame, then maybe they should have learned. I don't know if I'm still going to give you a pass, but I can understand if growth has happened in your life. It was a long time ago to learn. But we're talking 2 years ago. and then I guess his latest email was 2018, so it wasn't even 2 years ago. But like, how can you say that was a long time ago? When, I mean, with the internet and the way things are, like, he knew exactly what he should and should not say. So no, I don't think he should get a pass. I think he should have been fired immediately. I do think he probably would have resigned anyway, no matter what, even if the other stuff didn't come out. I don't know if that necessarily had to do with him calling Roger Goodell those words or anything. I think maybe sharing those pictures of the women topless was probably, I mean, that's a crime. So I think that was probably the real reason they had him resign, because I mean, I think he, not to say it was okay, but I don't think he was calling or saying that about Roger Goodell in like a derogatory term. I think he was just trying to be like smart aleck. Now the stuff about not applying the pressure and him drafting or having the Rams draft Michael Sams and all that, I don't know. Like I said, that could have played a part, but I really think it was sharing those photos of the women. And then as far as the Redskins, I mean, oh, you said we weren't going to say that word. I'm sorry.
The Washington football
Team.
I'm just saying what they call now. I really don't care. You know what I'm saying? Hold your own nuts. I care about ADOS, but you know, go ahead.
But I mean, as far as them, like, they have a long history of being that way. Like, they were the very last team to integrate the roster. Like, they were like boycotting, allowing Black people to play with them from the very beginning. And then we saw how they did Doug Williams. Yeah, so
the only reason they added a Black person too was because they wanted to get land in Washington, D.C. to build a stadium, and that's federal land. And so the government was like, nah, you got to integrate your squad and we'll sell you this land to build your stadium. You know, that's crazy. That's the only reason they did it.
See, I didn't even know that. And here's my problem. And then Lav, I'll let you join in, man. How was he going to coach? How was he going to continue to coach? We saw when with the Eagles, when Riley Cooper was talking about I'll fight any N-word here. I'll fight any N-word here. He was on tape. He wasn't saying it with the A, he was saying it with an ER. And I was sitting there thinking, like, damn, I'd be damn. I've been in the football locker room. I'd be damn if he gonna be talking like that. And we're still gonna suit up next to him. Something's gonna happen. Now I know professional football, you don't really have the power to really, you know, do that, but you do kind of, you know, you do have that power if we were unified. Just like we talked about when Kaepernick took a knee and when he was blackballed from the league. We said, man, they could have did that a long time ago. Had all the Black players came together and said, we're not going to allow you to treat this brother this way, and we're not going to play. If they all were in a position to do that, then I don't think it would have went down with Kaepernick like it did. But, you know, that's just my opinion. But, you know, I don't see how he could have continued to play, but I don't think, or continue to coach, but I don't think that they would have forced his resignation. They would have did some sort of sensitivity treatment, or, you know, brought him on some apology tour, or had some Negroes who jumped on and talking about, oh, he's not that bad. I remember when I was this and I was that, which you had cats lined up to do that. So I personally don't believe, had he not talked about the LGBT with that slur, and had it not been about those women, I still think he'd be coaching. That's my personal opinion. Lab, what's up?
You know, I can't disagree with any of that. The only thing I will say is that if it first came out that there was one email and he said something about Michael Sam, then I don't think he would have got fired. I think what it was the first time he said, oh, that was a one-off. I don't even remember doing that. I was probably in a bad state at this time. And then you got a treasure trove of other emails that start coming to light. Then there's no way to excuse that, because I think a lot of times people do want to give people they know a pass. You know, I mean, because frankly, some of these guys were hired by him, drafted by him. And so they kind of probably feel a sort of indebtedness to him to a certain extent, for him giving them opportunity or something like that. But so that's why people, I think, were rallying to his side, I guess you want to say. But when it comes to Riley Cooper, though, so the only difference between Riley Cooper is, so John Gruden is saying this explicitly about these people, but he directly has a direct power over hiring and firing these guys and affecting their livelihoods. Riley Cooper doesn't. So in the locker room, there are people that have totally different viewpoints, and you know, you you do what you do. Y'all play for this team for this year. We don't have to get along, but on the field, we're gonna do this. And so that's the only difference I would say. That's why Gruden had to go, was because you can't look at those emails and say, okay, when it comes time to make a personnel decision or a hiring decision, that he can just set that to the side. There's no way. That's how he feels with all the repeated emails. And the thing that really stood out to me though is he wasn't even coaching at the time. So he's working for a television network and he's talking to an executive of a team.
He's working Monday football. He's working Monday.
Yeah, and he doesn't work for that team or anything. So it does make you wonder, like, wow, what is going on for real? You know,
Was his brother there at the time?
His brother was. Now, I don't think his brother was a coach in 2011. His brother was the coach for like 3 years, and 15 through 18 or something like that. I don't know what the years were exactly, but
so they didn't have access to his emails. This came up on emails that they got from the Washington football.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So imagine the people that the teams and the owners and the executives whose email they don't have access to. If he felt that freely to say that kind of stuff, that's impossible to say. That's the only time that's ever happened. He's not that dumb. He got that from somewhere. He was on another email chain from some other place with some other owner, with some other executive, and then he just said, okay, well, this is how we act. And that's what he did.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up my next point. I was going to say, like, if there was like an email thread and there were several chains, like, who did he feel so comfortable saying that to?
Yes.
He's like, even if you say something once and somebody kind of checks you, like, hey, that's not cool. Like, you should have said that, or they don't laugh, or they don't entertain what you said. If somebody redirects you, you're not going to keep doing it. He was comfortable doing that. So, like, I want to know who's on the thread. Everybody talks about Bruce Allen was on there. Okay, well, he's no longer with the NFL. I'm guaranteeing everybody else in that email thread is still with the NFL, and that's why the name hasn't been dropped yet.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's more people.
I'll tell you right now, it comes down to legal responsibility. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm not concerned necessarily about who's going to be mad about him still working there. I'm going to be concerned about those flurry of lawsuits that's going to come from people that say, hey, I was fired because I'm Black. Here's the proof that he doesn't like Black people. And this is what they're willing to die on, is that this is when we found out he was racist and we fired him. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. We didn't have any information or knowledge prior to this point that he was racist or misogynistic or but
still liable, right?
Point that they can die on, huh?
He's still liable for those.
No. So the thing is like, if I go to corporate and say, hey, my boss is racist, and they're like, hey, deal with it, have a nice life, and then I still have to keep dealing with him, they have knowledge that he's racist, now they're liable. If they don't have any knowledge that he's racist, then they can't fix what they don't know. So this is their point of saying, hey, now we know, we fired him, now we didn't know before now. So if you come in with a lawsuit saying that he had any information about these women, if the women try to include the Raiders in the lawsuit, saying that they have these pictures on their hard drive or somewhere, if he has access to these emails or anything like that, because that's revenge porn, possibly. Like, this could go so many different ways legally wrong for them, but they get to die on the fact that soon as we found out, we fired him. It didn't have anything to do with them caring that he's racist, misogynistic, or that he has or homophobic tendencies or words or anything. This has to do with legal liability. They severed ties because that's what they needed to do legally. Corporate counsel was like, hey, he gotta go. And then now all we have to do is say, hey, we didn't know prior to today. As soon as we found out, we fired him. There's nothing else we could do about that.
Well, I think we talked about Dave Chappelle earlier, and it kind of transitions because I want to talk about Chappelle and the special, the closer that he brought out. And you said it, Dave Chappelle was right, but there's a lot of Black people. There's a problem that we have, and that's why I named this show, We Need to Love Ourselves More. I think a lot of us as Black people love white people too much. We care about their feelings. We don't want to make them uncomfortable. We don't want to hold them accountable for the stuff that they do to us. And other groups aren't like that. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that you don't love everybody, but I'm just saying there's somewhat of a sickness when you have somebody who is doing something against you, who is using language that is harmful to you, and you want to go to bat for them. That's Stockholm syndrome. That's us loving them too much, not loving ourselves enough. And I saw that in this situation when I saw players like Tim Brown lining up to try to defend Gruden. And I saw it with the whole Chappelle situation because there was a lot of those. And, you know, we talk about them, those gatekeeping blacks, those gatekeeper blacks who was talking about, Dave Chappelle was wrong. He was punching down on people who are downtrodden. He was using his privilege. He was acting like, there's not black LGBT people. And we talked about it on this show. When we had my cousin on the show, we talked about it. Nah, we ain't talking about gay folks, because we didn't have gay folks in our community for years, and we love them. We talking about y'all white folks who's racist. And just because you gay, don't give you a pass to hide behind that. So if you watch the special and Dave called him out on that, and he actually said it plain. He said, I'm not talking about LGBT people. I'm talking about white people. And in spite of that, I saw Negroes who didn't even think that was good enough, because it started with the whole Sticks and Stones special, his first one that he came out on this last deal, where he was defending Kevin Hart, because Kevin Hart got caught up with the homophobic tweets or whatever, and they made him apologize. And Dave called him out on that. He called them out on their hypocrisy. So I guess there's been this thing going on between him and the LGBT community ever since that happened back in 2019, and this came to a head. And he didn't back down, and I don't think he was wrong. And there's a lot of people who think he was, but I don't know. What y'all think when y'all watched it? I mean, I thought he did an excellent job. Dave's, style, he's more of a storyteller. I know people call him the GOAT. I can't really say that. To me, Eddie Murphy's the GOAT. But, I thought it was a good special, and I thought his storytelling and the way he brings points home, he made his point. So, but what did y'all think?
I thought it was poignant and insightful. And I thought that when he made the points that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, they missed the point. That was what he was trying to do. He's trying to rub you the wrong way. He's trying to make you see it from somebody else's standpoint. And there are people that are fighting so blindly on either side. It's kind of like Democratic and Republican. You're fighting so hard for your side that you don't want to even acknowledge when the other side makes a valid point. Like, I can't even say anything that you're doing wrong ever. Like, you're never wrong if we're not allowed to point out the mistakes or the missteps of the people that we care about, ADOS, whoever, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I feel like what he's trying to do is get us back to the point where, we see comedy as comedy, and stop trying to cancel everybody for saying something we don't like. Feel free to disagree. Feel free to not, hey, like you said, you clicked on my face. Don't. Easy. That's all you got to do.
Keep it in the comments. Yeah.
Man, but people don't know how to do that. We're like, oh, I didn't agree with what he said. Now I need this show to be off of the air and unavailable to every single human on the face of the earth because I didn't like it. Well, that's not the society we live in, or at least I hope that's not the society we want to live in.
I don't have a problem. Hey, I don't have a problem with that, because guess what? If somebody has said something negative about black folks or whatever, I want them off the air. I want everything to happen to them. So I don't have a problem with it. But my thing is, here's the hypocrisy for me. They always try to make it seem like we're homophobic. They always try to shame us for not supporting their stance. But when it comes time to support us, when it comes time to take a stand for the black trans women who are being murdered, when it comes time to talk about the black men who are disproportionately dying from AIDS, when it's really preventable and there's medicine and the white folks have it and the black communities don't, they're not standing tall for that. So you really don't have a place to come and ask me to do more for you when I'm just talking about black folks, right? And whether they gay, trans, or whatever, that's my concern, ADOS. So I'm not mad at them for wanting to protect them, but I just don't try to get me to sign on. And I think the black people who are signing on with that audience are somewhat misguided and somewhat, foolish. But lastly, go ahead.
So, I mean, like I said earlier, we can't get mad at them because they hold people to different standards than what we do. But I think there's a little bit of a difference, though. So, Dave is not a part of the LGBT community. And so they got mad at him for saying something about them, to where we're accepting the baby's behavior, you know, the murders, and all these rappers that are talking about guns and everything that's, you know, not beneficial to our community. Like, we're accepting that. So that's the difference. But I mean, I just don't feel like anything's off the table when it comes to comedian. My favorite, all-time favorite, is Fred Sanford, and I am so glad, or Red Fox, but he's his real name. But I am so glad he came at a time when he did, because just watching 30 minutes of his TV show, he would not have made it in today's day. He would have been canceled for so many different reasons. And so I think people just got to understand, like, when people are comedians, like, you know, they can joke about anything. Like, you're not above getting made fun of. Everybody like should have a sense of humor. So that's what I don't like.
Especially when you're keeping it in the comedic frame. So
right.
Like the white boy Kramer from Seinfeld, when he went off and he wasn't doing his bit. He was like, there it is. We would have hung you with this, that, and that. Nah, he just lost his cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it in a comedic frame where you tell a joke. Because guess what? I remember going to a comedy club in Columbia, Missouri, when we was at Mizzou. We were just like, man, we're just gonna go to a comedy club, and it was all white, and the white comedians was making all kind of black jokes, and we was all like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? You could tell like we were getting offended by it, and there was a black security guard who was looking at us, and he was just like, man, I sure hope y'all don't tear this mug up. Hope y'all don't tear this mug up, because I got a job to do or whatever. And when we got up and said, no, we just gonna go ahead and leave, he was so thankful. He was like, all right, y'all, I appreciate y'all, because that would have put him in that position where he was dependent on his white bosses, and he knew, hey, this ain't right, or what have you. So as long as they keep it in the community, it's fair, because I guarantee they talk about us. I absolutely guarantee.
Yeah. But okay, so I think it was very well done, very well written, comedy special. I will say this though, at the end, the story he told at the end about his friend who committed suicide, in a way, it was to me
Daphne Dorman.
It was the same thing that we talk about Tim Brown for, right? So he's saying these jokes, or he's doing this, but at the end of the day, his action to that one particular person didn't have anything to do with how he personally felt, because it was a job to do, and that's what Tim Brown was basically trying to say about Gruden. He might have felt this way, but to me, he was good to me. He helped me do this, he helped me do that, and I can't discount somebody's personal experience with somebody. So I'm not going to necessarily castigate them for talking about their own personal experience with somebody.
But sometimes you just gotta wait though. Like sometimes you just gotta be quiet and just wait. Because I guarantee now Tim Brown probably wouldn't, say anything.
Right. No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't now. Yeah.
But I got a problem with it, man. And this is the problem that I have. We're the only ones that feel like we have the moral obligation to do that.
That's what I was saying in that special though. He talked about his friend who she went to bat for him, and then she got, that's what I was just saying. There was a parallel in that. So that's not necessarily true. You feel that way, but it's not necessarily always the case.
But you saw how they did her.
Yeah.
They drove her, and we can't just specifically say that she committed suicide because of the person.
No, you can't. Yeah.
People can say, oh, okay, but she was going through this because she defended Dave Chappelle and his family. But I just think, man, we are disproportionate. We come to the defense of people who would not do it for us and speaking in a general frame of reference, like those white boys in Oklahoma who were on that bus, those college frat boys, and they was using the N-word or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot.
Then we had all the black preachers in Oklahoma City standing behind them, as they came into their apology or whatever. We are quick to do that. And I think, man, there's always a check behind it. There's some sort of, we're trying to get some sort of something out of it. If we sell the right sauce, you don't normally see that with other people. You don't see it from the Jews.
Well, this is the thing. I'm gonna cut to the chase, and it's gonna end a lot of it's not even a discussion, man. The reason it's like that is because we are the only group of people who the entire country was established to suppress. No doubt about it, from the beginning of time. And so those things die hard. Every construct, every arena that there is in life in the United States right now is based on that devaluation of Black people. And so, you know, we say, oh, we've progressed so far, but at the end of the day, the root of it has never been addressed. And the only way that's going to be addressed is if we, as a whole, choose to remove ourselves from the American capitalist system, seriously. And if we're not willing to do that, then we are going to have, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Reparations until we.
I think religion has a lot to do with
we
it
have
too, though.
wealth. We have wealth, and we aren't as desperate as we are to try to get ahead. I think that's the main point. So you're talking about withdrawal. I think when we get paid what we're owed, that's when we have the ability to do.
But see, that's what I'm saying. That's what it could be a never-ending conversation. But to say I'm not going to withdraw, you're continuing to perpetuate that, because every day you go to work, every stock you invest in, everything you invest in, it has its root in devaluation of Black people. So you saying I'm going to invest in this company over here, but they're doing bad things in Black communities and disadvantaged communities, and they're taking advantage of them. They're not paying them living wages. They're not giving them insurance. They're not doing all this stuff. But guess what? That stock's going up, so I'm buying it. So it's like MOB.
I mean, you think, I hear what you're saying, but I think most of us would like to think that these corporations are taking their social responsibility at heart, even though we know they're probably not. But how many of us are in a position to where we know everything that is going on with these companies that we invest in? We would have never had known. We would have never had known that they were taking advantage of those cheerleaders for the Washington football team had they not got sloppy with the emails and had they just not got reckless with it. So it's kind of hard for us to see I hear what you're saying, but again, what do? We withdraw how? Like, how do we establish wealth? How do we build wealth? You have to invest. The stock market and everything else. I mean, it sounds good what you're saying, but is it really practical?
It's not. That's what I'm saying. You're talking about practicality. And so in part of practicality is basically keeping the status quo. Practical means something that's not going to disrupt or not going to cause waves or anything like that. And so what's not going to cause waves is us taking my piece of the pie, and I take my crumbs and I do this, and I'm be cool. You know, I can say, well, I should know, but I don't feel like putting in the time, effort, and energy. How much are we willing to put up personally for the cause of the ADOS? How much are you willing to give personally? And it's something, and maybe I'm the only one, I'm not gonna lie, I think about it all the time. Like, man, there has to be something we can do. I'm getting to the point, like you see, you know what? I'm not gonna vote Republican, but it starts with, to me, it starts with that. That's a first step we need to take. Like, straight up, we need to build our own political party. We probably won't win any elections anytime soon, but it's going to force them to listen to what we have to say.
We need to play the long game.
As long as we're hitching ourselves to the Democratic Party, then what's going to happen is they're the ones who are putting those other communities ahead of the Black people. They're the ones in their agenda who's doing that. And so that, to me, that's the first step. I understand, Marv, you're right. It's not gonna happen though on the financial aspect of it. That's pie in the sky. That's,
we don't have the ability to.
That kind of stuff.
Think about Killer Mike though. What Killer Mike did when he bought that land and created that compound.
I mean, yeah, Arika, but if you do the science, there's a lot of stuff that we could do on a local level, right? But we need, from the top level, we need reparations.
Yeah, we do. We do. I mean,
so we want reparations, but if we could feed ourselves and sustain ourselves in our own community, we wouldn't need their wealth. We wouldn't need to be a part of, like Lav said, the capitalistic structure. We want those luxuries. We want that part of capitalism, and as long as we want it, we're never going to be able to remove ourselves from that system. I also agree with C, and it has to do with that religion too.
I think more than money, I mean, money aside, I think religion plays a big part. Like, I think a lot of pastors are getting a check, yeah, maybe. But for the most part, a lot of them feel they're leading by example and they think that they're going to go to heaven. You got to forgive everybody so that, God can forgive you and you can go to heaven. And I mean, that's really where it comes from. That's really why Black people are so forgiving. And that was just something that was instilled in us a long time ago. I mean, you had one slave owner and he had, I don't know, 20 or 30 slaves out there in the field. And he was one man with one wife and one gun. Why wouldn't they have overturned him? Like, I mean, that, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing, slavery was a choice thing, but I'm just, but the one thing he had that was more powerful than that gun and that whip was that Bible. Like, when you mentally, you can control so many more people with that Bible than you can with that one whip.
I think that's somewhat true. I think that when we unified, you saw where we had those within our ranks who sold us out. So that happened a lot, and you saw when there was calls for an uprising, they came together and they squashed the uprising. So the solidarity that we lack, other people don't lack when it's time. They'll put it aside and they say, hey, listen, we're playing the long game. Y'all talked about the long game. And like, listen, I'm playing the long game. And, we might be friends. I may be a good master or whatever, but at the end of the day, I need my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren to benefit from what this system provides to them. And that's why all your friends who are white and they may speak out on certain things or whatever, they only go so far. They only go so far because whether they want to admit it or not, they still benefit from this system. So that's just my opinion on it. But
yeah, no, but they already gave reparations though. They gave it to the white people though.
They didn't give reparations. They gave reparations to the Native Americans.
No, I mean, they gave them at the end of slavery. They gave it to the white slave owners.
They did. They gave. I'm saying
The Japanese.
them too. They gave.
Yeah, they said they were losing property.
Yeah,
they gave it to all of us. So I mean, I think at the end of the day, no, they should
All of them
be canceled. I think that the person that's on that train, I think you should watch people who are on that cancel, a Black person that's on the cancel Dave Chappelle kick, because most of the same gender loving people I know, they'll be the first one to say we don't really rock with the LGBT community like that because they're not for Black people, they're for white people. And these folks who are like these quote unquote allies or whatever, the allies are more outspoken and more clueless than the people who are actually gay and Black.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. So, and they'll try to say people like us, because we won't ride with them, are somewhat against the LGBT. That's far. Did y'all see, we had a dude who left a comment. We had our show about, we had some show where we talked about comparing the LGBT struggle to the Black struggle. And he really said that we were off base, as if we didn't know that there were gay civil rights. Yeah, we know about Bayard Rustin. We know about all of them. We're talking about how that institution, how it doesn't do right by Black people in that institution. And we are always first and foremost about uplifting Black people. So, man, we could go on and on about this. Dave, we got your back. Gruden, I'm glad you're gone. I'm glad you're not getting your money. And I hope that everybody else that was a part of that conversation, I hope y'all come to light too, so y'all can receive the same type of penalty. And that's it. So I think we talked about it enough. Make sure y'all follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at manlistenshow. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Twitch. We're trying to do this thing on Twitch, go live so y'all can watch us unedited and get some behind the scenes stuff. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on Spotify, and we'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Well, I watched that Juicy Smoothie episode.
What episode?
I will never not laugh at that.
Juicy Smoothie when he's talking about